Hey guys, and welcome to Anchor to Truth. Today we are diving into chapter 37 in the book of Jubilees. So let's get started.
All right, guys, get started in verse 1. And it says, on the day that Isaac, the father of Jacob, and Esau died, the sons of Esau heard that Isaac had given the portion of the elder to his younger son Jacob, and they were very angry. And they strove with their father, saying, why hath thy father given Jacob the portion of the elder and passed over thee, although thou art the elder and Jacob the younger? And he said unto them, because I sold my birthright to Jacob for a small mess of lentils. And on the day my father sent me to hunt and catch and bring him something that he should eat and bless me, he came with guile and brought my father food and drink, and my father blessed him and put me under his hand. And now our father has caused us to swear, me and him, that we shall not mutually devise evil either against his brother, and that we shall continue in love and in peace, each with his brother, and not make our ways corrupt. Then they said unto him, we shall not hearken unto thee to make peace with him, for our strength is greater than his strength, and we are more powerful than he. We shall go against him and slay him and destroy him and his sons. And if thou wilt not go with us, we shall do hurt to thee also. And now hearken unto us, let us send to Aram and Philistia and Moab and Ammon, and let us choose for ourselves chosen men who are ardent for battle, and let us go against him and do battle with him, and let us exterminate him from the earth from the earth before he groweth strong.
A duel. Okay. So he's still saying that. He came with guile, right?
Yep.
And I do think it's interesting that he says that he, this oath was just between them two. But it seems like he's saying that the oath was just between those two, but they're responding as if the oath is supposed to be for them to do also. Did y'all notice that? And they're like, "No, we too strong. We got them boys."
Well, what's funny is, like, I know way back we were talking about, the oath being codified, being written down, and it said that the angel was there essentially taking notes, like, okay, you agree and you agree. So whenever we always say, like, okay, well, it was just us two, no one heard it. And it was like, well, it was you two and your daddy and probably an angel sitting there double checking on everything, making sure it went according to plan, especially with these two guys. Maybe some two random guys out in the jungle, who knows? But these two guys in this story with this family, with this covenant, oh yeah, somebody's paying attention. Somebody's checking in behind these covenants and like, hey, I'm taking notes. You did say that you was not going to do this. And, I wonder if Esau kind of treated that as like I won't do this, but I'm not going to stop anybody else from doing this. Is that like the loophole that I can go through? Like, he kind of roused the sons up a little bit. Or if the sons are just, like I said earlier, they didn't fall far from daddy's tree. They were like, oh, he wasn't all that great of a man and always was doing evil, and perversity followed him everywhere. Hey, well, I mean, who are we supposed to be? We got raised by mama, who was one of the non-good people. So of course we're going to grow up like that. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to grow up under that tutelage. So it's just interesting to see, like, that they immediately, like, not even a half a generation, they're like, oh yeah, immediately we're getting back in there. Let's get back in the fight.
I agree with you, Jonathan, because what we're seeing here with Esau is that you're getting what you sowed, you're reaping. Because you went and you married these women from foreign lands. You knew you weren't supposed to marry them. You're bringing your children up in a godless way. The Bible's very clear. It says, raise your child up in the way of the Lord, and when he gets older, he won't depart from it. But it's apparent here that the parenting part of their lives has been exactly the lifestyle that Esau has been living the entire time. Do what thou wants to do and what is right in thy own eyes. And so now he's kind of getting this back now. And his sons, these aren't like, little boys speaking. These are grown men. And if they're anything like the chip off the old block of their father, who is a man of the field, a man of war, a man that gets things done and all that stuff, this is where I think we're seeing that coming back into play. They're like, hey, Dad, you raised us to be a man's man, and now what's up? What's going on? Why? We heard what happened. And apparently, what I'm assuming here is that he did not share anything about what happened between him and his brother with his sons. Because if they're asking, like, why? Like, what? Hey, what's up, Dad? We heard granddad give everything to your younger brother, but it's supposed to go to you. What's up? You know, I mean, you got to think at some point they're looking at their dad when he says, "Yeah, I sold my birthright for a pot of stew." So for some, what did he say in there? Some filthy lentils or whatever he said. I forgot what his word he
A
said here.
small mess.
A small mess of
A
lentils.
small
Yeah.
mess, and they're looking at him going like, "Wait a minute, we've looked up to you our entire life, and here you are. You sold your birthright for a small mess of lentils."
Mm-hmm.
So there's got to be a little bit like in their son's eyes are like, "What's going on here?" You know, and then you see that I almost feel like they're dishonoring their father, but at the same time, I guess they're trying to, you know, maybe I wouldn't say honor their father. I guess not. I think they're completely dishonoring their father here. And once he tells them, "Hey, I swore an oath," and so they're like, "Hey, what does that matter?" And so they have the same mentality as their father. What
Mm-hmm.
good is a birthright to me? Right?
Yeah.
What good is a birthright to me? I don't need it anyway. I'm going to perish anyway. So these kids don't care. These young men, or however old they are, they don't care that their dad swore an oath. To them, an oath means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. They weren't the ones that swore it, but I don't think they recognized that lineage, that oath follows, you know?
Yes, exactly.
So I totally agree. I think there's no I think they're seeing a weakness in their father, and they're not liking it.
Yeah.
You know, they see a weakness in him, and um, they're definitely not honoring him. But we may have some explanation to this idea of weakness. So let me go back over here and pull this up. So it says, "And if thou wilt not go with us, we shall do hurt to thee also." They're
Mm-hmm.
threatening their dad.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to hurt you. And clearly they believe it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not honoring their father. But over here on the right side, it says Philistia with Nephilim among them were longtime enemies. Moab and Ammon, the sons of Lot, were also not allies much of the time. And it's a little typo there. It says NTO instead of NOT. So sounds like there might be some reasons why they're thinking they got, yeah. It's kind of common, as boys become young men to kind of maybe challenge dad a little bit, from time to
Mhm.
time. But I believe these boys not only thought they could, but knew they could
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
do some harm, So
Well, and you see them following the ways of the world. They're like, hey, it's whoever's the strongest, the biggest, the best gets to win. Oaths don't matter. God doesn't matter. Faith doesn't matter. Covenants definitely don't matter. It's we got more people and you don't, so we're just gonna take your stuff.
Mhm.
It's a weird analogy. Not really analogy. It's a real weird story. The way it's built in is like we're watching this develop. You were kind of like we already know the end already. So it's interesting to kind of watch this play by play kind of transpire in front of their eyes, and they're like, hey, by the way, please don't do this, you kids. Whenever I die, let everything be good. And then you see Esau kind of come out front. Yep, dad made us swear not to do evil, not to do this, and then it was me, I sold my birthright. So Esau's coming up, still hasn't lied about anything yet. And all of a sudden the kids are like, by the way, daddy, if you don't want to get it together, we're going to get it together for you. And then it's like, I said a little bit, but it's due to Esau's own fault. He's put between a rock and a hard place. He's like, well, if I break the covenant, I know I'm getting the heavenly smackdown. If I keep the covenant, I'm going to get the earthly smackdown with the giants and stuff, and my own kids coming after me. What choice do you really have in that situation? And it lets us to really see, what is sin in our life and what is the result of sin in our life. It really does put you on a path of destruction where those consequences are real. Those actions and reactions are 100% genuine. And we're just kind of like, oh, we can do what we want. Well, God will just forgive us. I just have to pray about it. He's like, yeah, Esau could have prayed about it, but his son still would have been like, yo, I'm taking this birthright.
yeah,
And so then, what do you do because of the sins of the father, the mistakes of the past? They catch up with you. Sometimes, not every time, but I think so often we're just very flippant about sin. We're very flippant about covenants and promises and stuff. And we can see in this situation, Esau got it right back in his face, twofold.
yeah. It kind of lends me to, or kind of leads me to the mindset of where Esau is at. Esau has seen some things. He's known some things. He's heard some stories. He knows who his dad is. He knows who his granddad is, you know? And he knows who the God of his dad and his granddad is. So he's being put in a situation now where he is either having to stick with what he's got and go along with what his sons want to do and be in fear of his physical situation, or do away with all his gods and, you know, worldly ways and all that stuff and put his total faith in the Most High, the God of his father and the God of his grandfather. And if he were to do so, you know, I think the father probably would have honored that if he just stood up to his children and said, you know, no, we're going to honor this oath. We're going to do things the right way. You know, this is the Most High God. You don't go against him. You don't challenge him. I don't care how big and bad you think you are. I don't care what you think you're going to do to me. You don't go against him. You're going to be destroyed. He could have gone that route. So he's not just put in a position of fearing for his physical life. He's put in a position where he is either going to put faith in Yah, or he's going to choose to stay in his worldly ways. So pretty unique situation to be in. And well, I think we know how the story plays out, but that's tough. In verse 6, it says, let us send to Aram and Philistia and Moab and Ammon, and let us choose for ourselves chosen men who are ardent, which essentially means ready, willing, able, and passionate for battle. Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you too, man. This would actually make a really good movie.
Oh,
can you imagine?
with today's special effects, it'd be awesome.
Oh my gosh. Because on the side note, it does talk about the Nephilim. So we're not just talking about, can you imagine all of a sudden it's like Lord of the Rings scene where you just have like this different heights of these giant people just all marching towards this battle. And, going back a little bit, just, other than that, what I wanted to say was last week or the last time we were talking about this, when they're with Dad, and I said, hey, I really feel like Dad's really pushing us towards Esau. And I think Dad's pushing us towards Esau. Like at least 2 points of that conversation, I really felt like it's like, Jacob, I know you're good, man. Been righteous all your life. I'm not really worried about you, son. You made straight A's. You got through college. Everything's good. You're on a good career path. Esau, I'm worried about, because the father Isaac understands this oath I'm giving you. This isn't just idle words. Right. If this is something that the heavenly tables are the tablets in heaven, it's been written on, it's like, this is an oath. This is your word. And by God's law and standards, you're now bound to your oath. How important that is. Then I really think, again, in Isaac's wisdom, he's really trying to drive this home to his son, saying, there's still a chance. There's still a chance. And when you were talking about earlier, Kyle, I think when we go through 7, when we go into 7 here in just a minute, we're going to see part of, I think, Esau trying. There's going to be a part of him that's trying to like do what is right, and he understands.
No spoilers,
the word that he yeah. Huh?
I said no spoilers.
Oh yeah, no spoilers, yeah. But when we get further along in the story, we're going to kind of see a little bit more of that, of what's the battle that's going on inside of Esau. Yeah. But again, this would make a great movie. We got like this army of people getting ready to come against Jacob and his sons. And these aren't, like you said, these aren't just like we're picking just every random. These are men battle ready. Yeah. These are men of renowned type. This is going back to Genesis chapter 6. So this is getting getting serious. Like it's getting ready to go down big time.
When I say one of the interesting source documents of some of these behind the scene details is that we've read a little bit out of the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, where it kind of goes into some of the battles that Judah and these other guys go through. When you're reading through that story, you're like, that's a little far-fetched. That's a little crazy. This guy's doing what? But then you read this and you're like, here it is. They're setting it up. my army versus your army. You know, this is a David and Goliath type of moment. We're gonna go get our best guys, and you go get your best guys, and we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
you know, when you read through the 12 patriarchs, that their testimonies, they're kind of telling you, we went through those battles, we defeated those enemies.
Mhm.
So, and they're going into detail of what they did and how they did it and what it felt like and how everything transpired. It wasn't some easy, you know, it was a bunch of guys with pitchforks and they set a fire and they all got scared and ran away. No, they went through the battle. You know,
Yep.
and they prevailed out on the other side. So it lets you know, even with mighty men, even with guys ready for war, if you're on God's side, you don't lose. You know, David was on God's side, came out there, he's like, oh, the little shepherd boy who's pretty. And you're like, oh, okay, he's got no chance against a giant, you know, his spear was more than he does. He's like, oh, one hit wonder, immediately done. You know, situations resolved immediately. You're like, oh, yeah, that's right. God was on his side. Should have thought of that before we got in here, you know.
Yeah,
So
the Jonathan, with the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, you remember we were reading through that, and with the Judah story, I'm like going, dude, what? Wasn't this guy like throwing an ox through the air or something? I don't know. He was like,
Yep.
I'm like,
shielding off boulders.
yeah, it's like, yeah, giants are throwing boulders at him. He's just like, nah, get out of here, get out of here. It's like, again, this would make a great movie, I think.
So again, yeah, great point, Joe. Like, they were that strong. If that's the case, if they were that strong, they were this big and strong doing that kind of stuff. Imagine how crazy these Nephilim had to be. You know what I mean? That's something serious. Like, it goes far beyond just being big.
Right.
Okay.
But no laser eyes though, right?
I don't think they had laser eyes or sharks with lasers.
Okay. Just making sure, because that would be a little unfair.
Joe, get us going at 7, man.
Well, hold on. I mean, I want to say this too. Like, when you're talking about, and again, when you're battling these, see, here's the thing. This is back then. This is common. They all knew that there was these extraordinarily large people. This wasn't, you know, oh my God, there's a 20-footer over there. There's a 30-footer. No, they already knew this. So to me, when you look at the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, you look at Judah when he's talking about his battles. You have to have the Spirit of God in you to go into battle against something supernatural like that. You're just not rolling up on a 20-footer, even if let's even make them smaller, 12 and 15-footers. That's still a really large person to battle. You're not going into that battle unless the Father is with you. David's not going up against Goliath unless the Spirit of God is with him and giving him confidence. Because he said today, by the way, big boy, victory is going to be ours. And victory belongs to him. And so that's who does that. Most people, because actually the rest of everybody else was cowering on the other side of the line. And so a little shepherd boy, like I said, good looking kid comes walking out there, bringing his brother's food. And they're all like, hey, what are you doing here? You know, kind of smacking him around a little bit. And he's like, oh, I came to beat that guy up right there.
You gonna let this uncircumcised Philistine talk to y'all later?
Oh yeah, dude. Talk about a good Friday night SmackDown, you know, WWE moment.
All right, let's do it.
All right, verse 7. And their father said unto them, do not go and do not make war with him, lest ye fall before him. And they said unto him, this too is exactly thy mode of action from thy youth until this day, and thou art putting thy neck under his yoke. We shall not hearken to these words. And they sent to Aram and to Aduram and to the friend of their father, and they hired along with them 1,000 fighting men, chosen men of war. And there came to them from Moab and from the children of Ammon, those who were hired 1,000 chosen men, and from Philistia 1,000 chosen men of war, and from Edom and from the Horites 1,000 chosen fighting men, and from Kittim mighty men of war. And they said unto their father, go with them and lead them, else we shall slay thee. And he was filled with wrath and indignation, and on seeing that his sons were forcing him to go before them to lead them against Jacob his brother. But afterward he remembered all the evil which lay hidden in his heart against Jacob his brother, and he remembered not the oath which he had sworn to his father and to his mother, that he would devise no evil all his days against Jacob his brother.
So this goes a little beyond. We're gonna beat you up and hurt you. They're threatening his life now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and what's interesting is when you see Esau being provoked and being pushed, the Bible tells us like the heart is deceitful above all things. So we really can't trust those feelings and emotions sometimes that are from like our inside. Out of the well springs of the heart comes the true feelings and thoughts of man. And unfortunately, in this scenario, Esau gets pushed to the limit. Either I will literally kill you, or you lead this army. And so he goes to lead the army, and it's like as he's doing it, as everything gets riled up, as there's like all the hoorahs and the let's go drinking and partying. Let's get our spears sharpened. Let's all get prepared for battle. Let's all get the war paint. He's like, you know what? You're right. I don't like him. And you know what else? He did do this. And all of a sudden everything starts to come back. Everything starts to those emotions become real again. Where he was like, I really did love my brother. I really did promise what I promised. I really did oath, the things that I oath to my father. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to that. And then that inner emotion, those inner feelings of maybe unresolved anger, and they never really went back and actually talked about it. It was just more of like, it is what it is. I guess I'm just going to move on. They never really fully got together and said, hey, Jacob never came, hey Esau, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taken the birthright. I mean, it's old news now, let me make sure I take care of you, or vice versa. Or there was never this really come back together moment. So there's this hidden anger, this hidden angst that's just kind of floating throughout the relationship. And I think, unfortunately, Esau being pushed the way he was, it just brought everything back for him.
Mm-hmm.
So how about this? I originally thought when we read this that, or as we were reading through this in the beginning, I just thought that this was going to be like 1,000 men that they were bringing. No, this is 1,000 men from Aram. Let's see, 1,000 men from
Edom.
Moab and from the children of Ammon, those who were hired. So 1,000 men, and from Philistia, 1,000 men, and from Edom and from the Horites 1,000, and so that's 4,000 right there.
Yep.
And then it says, and from the Kittim, mighty men of war. So I'm thinking those are probably some shown up big boys right there. It doesn't say how many, but I'm thinking those are probably like, yeah, we can send 2 and be good. That covers our 1,000 with these 2 guys. So I don't remember if there's an account in the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs or not as to how many came from Kittim, or if there's anything specific that tells, how big these dudes were or whatever. I don't know. Over here on the side, it does say, we do have a little note, though. I'll read it real quick. It says, Genesis 6 reference, mighty men of old, men of renown, in other words, Nephilim. Giants lived among the Horites, Kittim, and Edom. The DSS refer to the Kittim or Kittim as the great enemy in the very end.
That's very interesting.
Very interesting. So, does that have anything to do with as in the days of Noah, possibly?
Could be. Definitely wouldn't rule it out. That's for sure.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's I see this. I like what you were talking about there, where you were talking about him not remembering his oath and just kind of getting caught up in the deal or whatever. Isn't that how it is with any sin? It's like people who fall back into their old ways. It starts with something simple, and then more and more you do it, the more you really kind of lean towards that, and before you know it, you're fully involved in that sin again and don't even realize it. It just it says, and he remembered not the oath which he had sworn, and that's crazy. I mean, when we fall back into our ways, if we ever do, I pray we don't, right? But when people backslide or whatever you want to call it, it's odd how we remember not the oath that we make with God, the promises, about our repentance and how we're going to be different and what we're going to do to change our lives. And I'm going to live for you. And then slowly but surely we forget our oath that we made.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, Kyle, when I read that, I can replace part of that sentencing by saying, but afterwards he remembered all the unforgiveness which lay hidden in his heart. I think that's really what it's saying. Is they're like Jonathan, you mentioned earlier, they didn't really sit down and flesh any of this out. They didn't really sit down and go, you know what, I'm sorry the way things played out, or however they could have discussed this. You don't really have it recorded anywhere in here that they actually like, hey, you forgive me, I forgive you, anything like that. But
Right.
again, I would replace that remembered with I would replace the evil part of it and say, hey, all the unforgiveness in my heart. And it was this root of bitterness. That's what I've talked about before, and I've taught about forgiveness. That when we walk in unforgiveness, that it springs up a root of bitterness in us. That root of bitterness is awful. It's horrible, and does no good for you or anyone around you. So therefore, when it says that he forgot about the oath too, it's like he remembered, but really what it is, he didn't care anymore about the oath.
Mm-hmm.
The oath's no longer important to me. I am now flippant towards my brother. And it's almost giving him a reason to do what he's doing. Because at first he's like, man, I regret my sons are making me do this. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, but you know what? He got it coming. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, bowl of lentils, man. Messy bowl of lentils. And I give it all away. He knew I was perishing and he did that to me. Yeah, forget about it. Yeah, sons, let's do it.
Yeah, and what we see is like so often, even in our modern world, like let's take ourselves out of the story for a moment. You know, it's a mental game that we play, and so much of our life is in our own head. You know, like I'm not going to eat such and such after this amount of time, and then what do? We justify and like, well, you know, it's just day one, so I'm going to have one, and then, well, you know what, I was going to do this, but okay, I'll start tomorrow. Or, you know, I'll give myself an extra 30 minutes because I deserved it. You know, like I woke up early today. I tried a little bit harder. So I'm going to stay up a little 30 more minutes. And little do we know, those little dumb decisions are forcing our brain to make these weird connections of saying, you've broken your word to yourself. So your word is now breakable. So anytime you break it after that, it's easier each and every time until it becomes a pattern where you no longer do it. And that's in a lot of the illicit items. You know, people, oh, I'll just try it once. Oh, I'll just go out with this girl once. I'll just drink this once. You know, it's like we literally, our brains are sometimes our worst enemy. So with Esau here, it was literally like in his head. Yeah, everybody around me saying that I'm justified. So then now I'm going to justify my actions. So once you justify your actions, yeah, the oath no longer plays a factor because you've justified your feelings, your emotions, and they come out outright and tell them in verse 8, you know, this is exactly the action that you've had from your youth. And you've always, you know, letting him put the yoke around your neck. You know, they're like, oh, yeah, see, you're just a little dumb guy. You know, you've always been making the wrong choices. Why would you let him subjugate you? You know, as a man, that's going to hit your pride a little bit. That's going to hit your ego button.
Yep.
Wait, what are you trying to say? Little brother's got me. And you remember little brother was telling mom, hey, if Esau ever wants to go out back, I'll go out back because I'm not afraid to handle my own. So this isn't like, you know, 6 foot Esau and 2 foot Jacob. They're both 6 feet. They're both brothers. They're both twins. You know, they were both ready to go. Esau just went that direction more often than not, where Jacob stayed correct more often than not. But we don't get any indication that one was just small and, you know, wimpy or anything like that.
Right.
Jacob came out and was like, if you need to flex, I can flex, but I'm going to do what God says versus what you're doing. And so the sons kind of play on that. Oh, you just weak dad man who let your brother just put the yoke on you. And, you know, he's just always putting you in a headlock every time he sees you. Don't you remember that? And he's like, yeah, you're right. I don't like that. And, you know, he let that mental game play out, where then you literally just forget your oath. You forget that you promised yourself you weren't going to have any more Oreos. You forget that you promised yourself that you were going to go to bed at a certain time because you just keep breaking it.
Yep.
You know, when you look at too, when the way the sons finish up verse 8, because again they're like, we shall not hearken to these words. Dad, I don't care what you said. I don't care what oaths you made. We're at this. I think they're at the point now where you're like, we're going to do what's right in our own eyes. And sorry, old man, but this is the way it's going to be. Matter of fact, we're taking charge now, because right after that, we're reading, they're the ones going out and gathering. They're like, no, we're mighty men now. Dad, you might be old and letting put your neck under the yoke of your brother, but we're not playing that game. And to show you we're not playing that game, we're going to go out and get the meanest, baddest dudes on the block. And by the way, you're either going to lead them or we're going to mess you up too. I mean, this is rough. Can you imagine the family dynamics here? They're not speaking to the father with any honor whatsoever. Well, again, I go back to the fact that this is how they were raised. Because
Exactly.
I guarantee you, their father Esau was talking junk about Isaac.
Well,
That's
he was
senile old man.
he probably all his life taught them to be, great warriors, right?
Yep.
You know, rub some dirt on it, be tough, that kind of stuff. Be a man. So that was what they were taught. But so it was not only what they were taught, but it was also what they were not taught.
Mhm.
I would be willing to bet that the stories that we're reading about now about Abraham and Isaac and all that they went through and dealt with, specifically Abraham, I bet those stories wasn't really told, or if they were told without certain details.
Mhm.
It was, let me tell you about Grandpa. This is the bloodline we come from, not the Most High was with him.
Mhm.
Right.
So yeah, not only what they were taught, but also what they were not taught. So they have, at this point, I mean, they have no fear of the Most High.
Nope, not at all.
But they have no fear of him. But it seems like, to me, I would think they have no fear of the Most High because they're not really aware of the Most High. So hadn't heard the stories. So bring your children up in the ways. Right?
Yep.
All right. We ready to get in 14?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
All right.
All right, in verse 14 it says, and notwithstanding all this, Jacob knew not that they were coming against him to battle, and he was mourning for Leah, his wife, until they approached very near to the tower with 4,000 warriors and chosen men of war. And the men of Hebron sent to him, saying, in the voice of Pat Robertson, behold, thy brother hath come against thee to fight thee with 4,000 girt with a sword, and they carry shields and weapons, for they loved Jacob more than Esau. And back to it. And so they told him, for Jacob was a more liberal and merciful man than Esau, but Jacob would not believe until they came very near to the tower. And he closed the gates of the tower, and he stood on the battlements and spake to his brother Esau and said, noble is the comfort wherewith thou hast come to comfort me for my wife who hath died. Is this the oath that thou didst swear to thy father and again to thy mother before they died? Thou hast broken the oath, and on the moment that thou didst swear to thy father, wast thou condemned. And then Esau answered and said unto him, neither the children of the men nor the beasts of the earth have any oath of righteousness, which in swearing they have sworn an oath valid forever. But every day they devise evil against one against another, and how each may slay his adversary and foe. And thou doest hate me and my children forever, and there is no observing the tie of brotherhood with thee.
Wow.
So yeah, it's interesting. We're kind of getting this like back and forward of, in advance. I'm already creating an argument in my own head. I'm already building a scenario in my own head, from Esau of stuff that's not even going on. Right. Like it gives us right there in the beginning. And Jacob knew not that they were coming. Jacob had no idea. He wasn't paying any attention. He wasn't ready for war. He didn't have any soldiers, men. He was like, whoa, we got to close the gates. It wasn't like he was already in advance, gates closed, guys sitting on the tower, whole army sitting outside, like one day Esau's coming and I got to be prepared. It was, hey, gates are open. Where I'm mourning for my wife. This was the wife that I ended up super loving. Didn't even really recognize it, at first. And so it's all just like, I would say happy, but it's all good on Jacob's side. Everything's like nice, and it's occurring as it should. He's in a period of mourning. He's just doing Jacob life. He's not even outside thinking of anything else. And then here comes Esau showing up. And at first I was like, oh, maybe it was kind of under like Trojan horse style. They just send Esau in. It's like, hey, I'm Esau. Hey, I'm Jacob. No, you see 4,000 men and all these giants and stuff out there. And Jacob knows what's up. Yeah, Jacob's like, oh, we're doing this. We're doing this. We're doing this. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's talk. Close the gates. I'll come out there. Hold on.
And you would think, I mean, that, to your point. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't know that they were doing this. So not only was he not preparing for said manner, but he didn't even have spies out checking to make sure is brother going to keep to his oath, nothing like that. Like, so this caught him by surprise. So he was fully trusting that his brother was going to honor this oath.
It's interesting in the verbiage in this too, with verse 14, because it does say he comes with 4,000 warriors and chosen men of war.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if that's relating back to the Nephilim type thing we're talking about earlier.
Maybe so.
Like mighty men of old or men of valor. That's why I'm wondering if that's a distinction between we had actual men, but we also had these things with us.
Right. Well,
go ahead. I was just going to point out right here in 15, it says, and the men of Hebron sent to him saying, behold, thy brother hath come against thee. So it's kind of odd. So number one, this is not Esau saying this.
Right.
This is the men of Hebron saying this. And then they also are kind of taking themselves off the hook. Like, hey, we're obeying orders. He's bringing us here. It kind of seems like what it's saying. Like, right? Like, I don't know. It's just odd the way that's handled.
I think it was the advanced party trying to see if they could secure surrender up front. Hey, we're all showing up. We got 5,000 guys. What are you doing? Nothing? Okay, why don't you just give up? Why don't you see that your brother's coming? He's pretty much laying the foundation for these are the events that are about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Me and a whole bunch of guys are coming. Your brother's with us. So just so you know, this isn't just some random, warring groups from the other neighborhood. This is your brother coming for all the goods. This is your brother coming to set his record straight, at least, in his own mind. And so it's interesting because, like I said, in 17, it goes on to say, he's like, oh man, you came to comfort me because my wife died. Esau's like, I didn't even know your wife died. I'm here to take your stuff. I'm here to end you. And it's like, so you can see how little he's involved in the family. You can see how little he cares about what's actually going on. His brother's wife died, and he's like, I had no idea. I was just here to get your stuff. And he's like, so clearly, because the men already came to me and told me you come here with the army, and I can with my eyeballs see this army. You're not coming here to comfort me, so you clearly are prepared to break the oath, if not already broken it. Because we read later in the New Testament, even if you hate your brother in your heart, you've already committed murder.
Mm-hmm.
So I started thinking about that when we read this. It was like, at that point, a little bit earlier, we just read where it was like, and then Esau in his mind forgot the oath. And then he was like, now I'm wishing evil upon my brother. And that was when that sin was committed. You know what I mean? It was way before he ever decided to fight, to pick up a sword, to start chasing after him or anything like that. It was that moment where he said, yeah, forget the oath. And I want evil now on my brother. And I want to kill him. And. You're like, man, that was it. You already started to give yourself over to the devil. And when you open yourself up for that, sin's crouching at the door.
So mark that down as one more thing that Yeshua was not just coming up with something out of the blue. This is a thing that has been established from the beginning, right?
It's definitely precedent.
What's interesting too is in 16, guys, where it says, but Jacob would not believe the word that was given to him.
Yeah, he wanted to hear it.
He says, but Jacob would not believe until they came very near to the tower. It makes me wonder that the time, it does seem like when, I know we're reading in between the lines here, but when we see them go and bury their father together, the whole interaction there, you see even Esau going, you know what, Dad, I can't accept this blessing from you because I sold it. You're seeing this play out to where even Jacob's probably going like, hey, that's mighty big of you, man. We could have had a big squabble right here with Dad, but no, you actually, like, you did good, and I appreciate that. So it just comes across like maybe they left on what would be conceived as good terms.
Right.
But then that's why James was like, no, there ain't no way, man. Come on.
Right.
I'm not going to believe it till I see it. And then, Jacob's response to Esau was a little bit snarky, a little bit, oh, has thou come to mourn with me over my wife's death? Kind of gives him like the look like, yeah, what are you doing here, homie? Did we both, to Dad and Mom, say we weren't going to do this? What's up? That's Joe Christmas, Book of Jubilee. What up? What's up? But don't forget, because they were all girt with the sword. So that's the word of the day is girt. Sorry, I had to do Pat Robertson earlier because when I was reading, I was like, I can see Pat Robertson actually doing commentary on this. So
Out of Jubilees,
I hope you enjoyed it. But anyway,
Yeah, this was that was a big one for me. That last part of 17. On the moment that thou didst swear to thy father, wast thou condemned.
Yep.
Pretty much, you set yourself up for this one because you
Yep.
swore it, so you don't have a choice. You can't break it. And then Esau's response is amazing. He's like, not amazing in a good way, but it's like it's crazy. Like, neither children of men or beasts of the earth have an oath of righteousness. Like, he's pretty much saying, man, ain't nobody keeping no oaths and no righteousness. What are you talking about? I could almost see him giving him like the full, like, I don't care about you. I don't care about this conversation. I'm gonna be sarcastic as all get out. He's like, nobody's keeping oaths. What do you mean? Like, they're everybody's devising evil versus one another, and how many will slay the adversary, and you hate me and my kids. He's like, and Jacob's probably sitting there like, say what now? Like, I've been here taking care of mom and dad, and then they passed, and then my wife passed, and I'm still taking care of my family. What do you mean I hate your kids and I hate you? Like, that's the last thing on my mind. I didn't even know you were coming today. If I would have brought out the best cake and the best of the treats for you. You know what I mean? Like, Jacob's probably like taken completely aback at this moment and trying to, hey, you remember what you said? And Jacob and Esau's like, I don't care what I said. Ain't nobody is doing that, and I'm not about to do that.
Yes, I saw where you highlighted that, Kyle. I'm gonna see where you're going with that one. That very end of 18.
So, well, the whole thing that Esau is saying here. So let's break this down a little bit. It says, neither the children of men or beasts of the earth. Now, we can take that to mean animals, or we can take that to mean this is some kind of hybrid, possibly, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me, some type of Nephilim type thing or whatever. But so he's bringing that into the story, and then he says, but every day they devise evil one against another, and how each may slay his adversary and foe. Is he not also speaking about his very children that are putting him in this situation?
Mhm.
That's crazy.
But what he's also doing is he's basically telling his brother, "You are my adversary and foe."
Mhm.
Right.
Like, let's make no mistake about it. This is my line of thought here. By the way, we're technically no longer brothers. You're now my adversary and my foe. I think that's what he's really trying to drive home to his brother. Like, forget the oaths, forget everything else.
All right.
And then he accuses in 19, he accuses Jacob of hating him, and thou dost hate me and my children forever, and there is no observing the tie of brotherhood with thee. So he's trying to put this on Jacob. He's trying to say, look, this is your fault.
Little
You hate
gaslighting.
me. Yeah, a little gaslighting. You hate me and my children forever, and there's no tie between us because I can't even talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're always right.
Yeah, well, what we see Esau doing here is he's taking a very classic approach to, I'm wrong, but I don't want to be wrong, so I'm going to completely justify everything I'm doing.
Yep.
You know what? It's not my fault because it's the nature of man, just like a beast. It's like people saying, well, I have to go engage in marital situations. I can't help it. I'm just a man. I'm just a woman. We got needs. And it's like, no, you definitely can help it. It's called free will and choice. And so he's like, oh no, I can't help it. Just like the animals hate each other and we hate each other. It's just built. It's human nature. Let's go back to the most animalistic, non-brain. Yeah, you take the brain out of the scenario and be like, I can't help it because this is the nature of man. Which there is some truth to that. There is a nature of man. That's what Paul's talking about. He's like, well, the law that I want to keep, it's the law of man, not the law like the Torah law. He's like, there's three different laws Paul's talking about there, and it's the law of man, the law of God, and then the law of the land. And so he's kind of like trying to describe some stuff in there. He's like, there is a natural approach to things that like the human flesh wants to do, right? Like, I want to eat all the food, but I know if I eat all the food, I'll be bigger than I am today. I won't put a number on it. So, there's just certain details in our lives that we have to have self-control. That's why it's one of the fruit of the spirit. God's like, yes, you have to be able to control yourself. You're not an animal. You're not a beast of the land. Where Esau's like, oh, we're all just animals. We're all just beasts. What am I to do? And then, you see him again justifying it. No, I'm fighting you because you hate me.
Right.
And so he's like, I'm fully justified in doing this because it's your fault. You're
fault.
like, wait, but you're here with an army and I'm here crying and it's my fault. So it's a total situation of, let's make this as backwards as possible so I don't feel so bad about doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I do the things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I want to do.
That was a direct quote, right?
Something like that. King Kyle version.
There you go.
Ooh, and you gave yourself kingship. Oh, okay.
The sovereign one.
How about the new international Kyle version?
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
The new interpreted
Let's
version.
see.
There you go.
Your KJV, Kyle, Jonathan. I mean,
Victory.
there you go.
All right. Any more meat on these bones, or should we go to 20?
I think we're ready for 20.
Let's
Yeah,
do it.
I'm getting the grizzle.
Getting the grizzle. All right, let's do it. It says, "Hear these words which I declare unto thee. If the boar can change its skin and make its bristles as soft as wool, or if it can cause horns to sprout forth on its head like the horns of a stag or of a sheep, then shall I observe the tie of brotherhood with thee. And if the beasts separate themselves from their mother, for thou hast not been a brother to me, and if the wolves make peace with the lambs so as not to devour or to do them violence, and if their hearts are towards them for good, then there will be peace in my heart towards thee. And if the lion becometh the friend of the ox and maketh peace with him, and if he is bound under one yoke with him and ploweth with him, then I shall make it peace, and I shall make peace with thee. And when the raven becometh white as the razah, then know that I have loved thee and shall make peace with thee. Thou shalt be rooted out, and thy son shall be rooted out, and there shall be no peace for thee. And when Jacob saw that he was so evilly disposed towards him with his heart and with all his soul as to slay him, and that he had come springing like the wild boar which cometh upon the spear that pierceth and killeth it, and recoileth not with it, not from it, then he spake to his own and to his servants that they should attack him and all his companions.
So, two things I picked up real quick. Well, let's do this first. So, down here in verse 23, it says, "The raven becometh white as the raza." And it's, apparently, this is a large white bird which eats grasshoppers, whatever that is. But I did find it really neat in verse 21 and 22, these particular animals that were used in this comparison of what will have peace with one another. And there's some pretty prophetic stuff about this. If I'm not mistaken, wolves make peace with the lambs. And then in 22, the lion becometh the friend of the ox. So I don't know. I think that's pretty cool, the prophetic implications that we have there.
Yeah, so I think Esau's jumping in, and he's saying, starts off saying, hear these words. He's like, oh no, I want you to hear this. Like, yeah, we may have been talking before, but now I'm declaring. It's like the old Southern man, I do declare. So he's talking to him. He's really saying, I'm getting this information in your ears. I don't want you to misconstrue why I'm here, my purpose or intent. And he starts to go forth, and again, he's still talking about this, like taking the full animal approach to stuff. He's like, yeah, human logic is out of the situation. Human ties, family relations, love. You're not hearing any of that word. He's not even saying hate or anger. He's just like the animals, how they can't work together. We can't work together. It's not. It has nothing to do with anything. So he's like, you're not even a brother to me because we're essentially two random animals in a field. And what happens with two random animals? Nature. And so he's like, nature's about to happen. You know what I mean? Which is kind of crazy. He's like, let's get all National Geographic in this moment. And so, but like Kyle was saying, these two animals, every animal he's pairing is like a peaceful animal and a attacking animal, a prey type animal,
Predator
and
and prey,
predator. Yeah. And so you see that connection each time, and he's not even saying, oh, then the lion attacks the hyena, and it was like, oh man, two warriors going to battle. He's like, no, you're just a little lamb, and I'm the big attacking animal. Okay, you want to be the ox? I'm the lion. And so he's putting himself in again, he's using like that, trying to use that mental ascent. I'm going to make you feel lower than me. I'm going to make you feel less than me by everything I'm telling you. Oh, you still got a heart. You still got feelings and emotions. I'm just a lion. I'm gonna come here and rip your head off. And there's nothing else to this. And it's interesting that he chose those examples because you can see Jacob, like I said earlier, Jacob's his own man. He's not the little skinny kid who can't hold his own sword up. He's like, hey man, I'm in the fight with you, and I don't want to fight you, But yet the way you're talking right now is sounding a little crazy. So I'm giving the boys behind the wall the secret password. I'm tapping on the wood or whatever it was. We're no slouches either. I'd prefer to be mourning for my wife, but if it needs to go down, then I'm here for it.
Yeah, I would say that Esau's picking the wrong time to pick a fight.
Yeah.
Because his wife just died. He's mourning his wife, and you have the gall to come up here, not even knowing that she's dead. You're going to show up at my place where the gates were open with 4,000 men ready to fight. It's like, what's up, man? What's going on? Again, when we go back and read this, he didn't even want to believe it. He said, I'm not going to believe this. I just cannot believe my brother is going to bring, at this time in my life,
Right,
with this going on, that he's going to be bringing this junk. We just buried dad. Now I'm burying my wife that I love. And it's like, now you bring this against me? When you look at what Esau is basically telling his brother here, 20 through 23, is he's saying there's no way my mind is going to change.
right.
I'm going to make up the most crazy scenarios here of the wolf and the lamb and the lion and everything else. If the boar could change his skin to soft, if he can grow horns on top or whatever, he's like, when these things happen, then we could be brothers again. But other than that, we're not brothers anymore. So I'm going to make the craziest, most exaggerated examples that I can to let you know that today we're going to war.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no change in my mind, because none of these other things in nature are going to change either.
Right.
So I think when he drives that point home, that's when, Jacob's like, Jacob knows, okay, it's on. I'm going to have to fight my brother today. There's no turning back now whatsoever.
Yeah, it's kind of like when pigs fly or when hell freezes over. He's if this could happen, essentially, it's never gonna happen. So get ready.
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that because this is so prophetic. I got to point out though, the way 20 starts off. I don't know. It's all I could think of was hear me now and listen to me later. If you got that reference, you're old.
Yeah.
But the wolf and the lamb and the lion and the bullock, or what is it? The ox. Okay.
Ox, yeah.
So Isaiah 11:6 and Isaiah 65:25. So Isaiah 11:6 says, the wolf also shall dwell with the lamb. Everybody thinks it's the lion and the lamb, but
yeah.
The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the young lion and the fatling together, and the little child shall lead them, and a little child shall lead them. In Isaiah 65:25, it says, the wolf and the lamb shall feed together, and the lion shall eat straw like the bullock, and dust shall be the serpent's meat. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain, saith the Lord. So, my prophecy, whatever you want to call it, was going off like crazy, right?
Your prophecy radar.
Radar, that's the word I'm looking for. So it made me wonder, knowing that was the prophetic things that we have in Isaiah referring to this, tells me, okay, this is going directly back to this story.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me wonder if there's not more to this that we just haven't got yet. Such as, let's back up to verse 20. And it says, if the boar can change its skin and make its bristles soft as wool. Okay. Obviously, right there, surface level, it just sounds like, okay, we're asking this impossible thing. But then we have this statement here, or if it can cause horns to sprout forth on its head like the horns of a stag or of a sheep. And anytime I hear horns, it makes me think of either, what's on the altar, or again, something prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Are we talking about something unclean here? I don't know, man. I think there's some forgive me for this statement because it's kind of unclean in this situation, but I still think there's some meat on the bones here that we could pick through.
Well, what about? Isn't there a I don't know if it's prophetic. I think it is. Isn't there something, Kyle, it goes along with there being a big horn and a little horn?
Oh yeah,
Revelation.
absolutely.
Prophecy?
And a little horn coming up amongst the other
Yeah.
horns,
Yeah.
Yeah,
right?
the 3 are rooted out, and the power goes to the one.
Sprouting forth, coming
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
So yeah.
So
Yep.
if you guys have any thoughts on that or any direction you can give us on that, throw it out there. Put it in the comments. Let us know.
Absolutely. You know,
I
the thing
think
too,
there's something there.
the thing with that, Kyle, it makes me think it's almost, it makes me feel like, what if, well, I know the Father's listening, he always knows everything that's going on, but it makes me wonder if he's saying, oh, all these things that Esau's saying, this will come back and bite you, or I'm going to take exactly what you're saying and I'm going to make it into something later down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Where, the wolf and the lamb will lie down together and they won't devour one another. I mean, I'm saying it's almost like, the words that you spoke, I'm just for the sake of doing this, I'm gonna make this happen. That was part of my thought process with being prophetic and everything else, is like, be careful the words you're speaking right now, because it might just happen.
What was the let me pause real quick. And just one more thing to kind of tie all this in together. I wanted to take us back to that note that I read earlier over here on the left-hand side, where it says Genesis 6 reference, mighty men of old, men of renown, Nephilim, giants lived among Horites, Kittim, however you want to say that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a reference to Jubilees 24:28, and Edom, the DSS, refer to the Kittim as the great enemy in the very end. So I don't know, man. I think there's more to this boar and horns coming out of its head than we might realize right now. So anyway, I'll digress. But before you guys jump in here, I did want to bring up one more little point. So there is a section that's bracketed right here. It says, "And if the breasts separated themselves from their mother, for thou hast not been a brother to me." And it does say over here on the side that Charles, the translator in this, thinks the bracketed words may be out of place or corrupt. So just a little note for that. And I know I said I only had one more thing, but there, just this one last little thing. I thought this was just a point that needs to be brought up in 24. It says, with his, and when Jacob saw that he was so evilly disposed towards him with his heart and with all his soul, as to slay him. So every fiber of his being, there was no talking him down. There was no nothing. He realized that this is gonna happen. All of his heart and with all of his soul. That's a tough place to be in.
The exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be loving our brother with all,
Right.
as ourselves.
That's what I hear.
Yeah.
Oh, one more little goodie here.
Riley.
And with all his soul, as to slay him, and that he had come springing like the wild boar, which cometh upon him, upon the spear that pierceth and killeth it, and reconcileth not from it. So, if you've ever done any boar hunting, one thing that some people who really get into hog hunting or boar hunting is the fact that pigs are a fairly easy animal to kill, right? And generally there's so many of them, like you can kind of just point your rifle in that direction and you're likely going to hit a few of them because there's so many of them. Generally they group up, they travel in packs or whatever. Some people want to take it back a little bit further. They want to do things old school ways. So one of the methods that people use in modern times is to call themselves a man, is they will literally use a big Bowie knife and get hands on, which is very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
A boar will hurt you or kill you, especially if they have some tusks. And then the other thing is using a spear to hunt them. So here's the thing about the boar. The boar is charging for the intended purpose of hurting or killing you.
Yes.
Like that's what that boar is charging
Mhm.
for. But the boar is not recognizing the fact that you have a spear and you are going to kill it. You are going to, and it's going to continue to attack until it dies. It is going to keep coming at
Yeah,
you.
that's correct.
Come at me, bro. Like it's going to keep coming until it can't keep coming. But it has no understanding of the idea that if it does continue to charge, it is going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he's comparing him to. As with his heart and with his soul, as to slay him, and that he had come springing like the wild boar which cometh upon the spear that pierceth and killeth it, and recoileth not from it. In other words, he's running to his own
Yes.
destruction.
I,
And
I like
can't
to
see
say
it.
the phrase, he is so blind with
Rage.
anger.
Yeah.
He is so blind with anger that you like, and let me say this: if you ever come across a wild pig, ladies and gentlemen, out in the
Climb a
wild,
tree.
get away. You're not going to outrun, I promise you that, especially if it's a big boar. They will slice you up and they will come at you. They will not stop. My brother-in-law shared a story. He's a big hunter. He hunts everything. And he actually was out of ammunition. And a boar took him up into a tree, and the boar would not leave. Like the boar would not go away. He said he was up there for a long time and finally decided, I'm going to have to come down and kill this thing with my bare hands. Like he had a hunting knife and really jumped out of a tree, landed on the boar, and he told me that he stuck, he had to kill the boar with his own two hands with a knife because that thing was so bent on getting to him, he would not leave at all. Even though he sat up there for a long time. And this is basically what the descriptor here from Jacob is. He's coming at me like a boar who's blind with rage and anger that doesn't even realize death is imminent. You're going to die.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's rough. This is your brother. This is your own brother again. That Jacob saying the way that he's speaking to me right now. I understand that what he's basically telling me, unless the laws of the universe change before us right now, I'm going to kill you. We're no longer brothers. And he's like, I see what's in your heart, and we're going to have to take action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's hard about that is, we were reading all this, and Esau's essentially being a very bad attacker. He's laying out all of his plans, telling him all his feelings, all his emotions. And he's doing a really bad job. I mean, let's be honest, and that's what Joe was getting at, that blind rage. You start to be and say stupid. He's like, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And if this can't change and that can't change, he's giving away all his battle plans, all his feelings, his emotions. So he's like, hey, brother's emotional. Jacob's just kind of sitting back listening to all of it. All right, well, you're a little emotional right now. That's going to cause you to do something that you don't want to do. And you're going to make a mistake that it's going to end your life. But while he's doing that, I think that it's almost like God sitting back and saying, everything that you say, all the evil you wish upon Jacob, all that's going to return to you. You're talking about, oh, you and all your kids are going to be rooted out and this thing and that thing. And he's like, oh, really? I bet you anything the opposite's going to happen. You're going to die. Your kids are going to die. And actually, Jacob and his kids are going to be the most famous kids in all of the Bible. So literally, it's going to be the opposite. And we get that idea, at least for me, I immediately brought back the thoughts of Romans 12, 19 through 21. It says, my friends, do not try to punish others when they wrong you, but wait for God to punish them with his anger. It is written, I will punish those who do wrong. I will repay them, says the Lord. But you should do this. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him a drink. Do this. Doing this will be like pouring burning coals on his head. Do not let evil defeat you, but defeat evil by doing good. And this was some advice that Esau needed to take. He's like, hey, by the way, you want to do evil against your brother, do good to him. That actually will make whatever problems that you think you have, whatever underlying tension that you've got there, that's how you resolve that. And Jacob, on the other hand, is taking this advice exactly. He's like, I'm not going to do any evil against you. I don't wish anything bad against you. And if you do come against me, vengeance is God's. He's going to be the one to protect. He's going to be the one to provide. He's going to be the one to solve this problem. Just like we talked about with David earlier. David knew good and well, that's Goliath and I'm David. He knew that. But he's like, God's on my side. God's got this. So, we see that what Jacob did early in 24, when Jacob saw, Jacob didn't make this decision right off the bat. He didn't see brother come with the army and then immediately, start saying, let's get it together. He said, hey, he let him talk and give his whole spiel and all his anger and all his upset and all his armies. It was like, yeah, okay, you're upset. Cool. What are we going to do about it? And then when Jacob saw that he was so evilly disposed, oh, okay. Well, you've gone as far as I'm going to let you go because now I have to protect home and castle. So we're going to have to do something about that. And then in verse 25, then he spake to his own, to his servants, that they should attack him and all his companions. So there is a point when we're faced with an enemy that we don't just run, that we don't just sit and cower in the corner. There is a point, and I think God and through the Holy Spirit is going to give us that knowledge, that information, that timing of when we don't sit idly by, when we don't just wait for things to happen, where we go head on and say, it's time to hit the prayer closet. It's time to open the scriptures. It's time to go get the boys, not for attack, but for prayer, for advice, for wisdom. And if need be, if you really do need to physically interact with somebody, let God lead that conversation. Let God lead those thoughts and emotions, because God's not going to sit idly by and let people get hurt. God's not going to idly sit by and let a situation go on wrong for too long. Eventually, he will step in. And here, I think Jacob was like, this is that moment. God, it's time for us to go. It's time for us to get ready and to attack this enemy head on. We can't sit by and let them cause destruction upon us.
Amen. And with that, guys, we will see you next time for chapter 38 in the book of Jubilees. God bless.
Shalom.
Ciao.